tanto il costo iniziale quanto quello che subentra dopo, e nella realizzazione di opere tipicamente le varianti. Per cui nel momento in cui io decido di realizzare l'opera mi costa tot, poi scopro successivamente che sono necessarie delle varianti, perché il tempo è un fattore determinante, perché le cose cambiano, perché non avevo tenuto in considerazione molte cose, e da questo punto di vista mi ha stupito la riflessione che faceva David Mosley rispetto al fatto che in UK a volte non tengono abbastanza conto del fattore tempo. Io credo che invece in Italia in questo momento siamo ossessionati dal fattore tempo, nel senso che naturalmente ci si è resi conto fortunatamente che il fattore tempo è determinante, che una cosa realizzata adesso fra 15 anni non è la stessa cosa, nemmeno nella prospettiva della soddisfazione dell'interesse pubblico, e quindi è assolutamente necessario anche inserire l'elemento tempo nella nostra progettazione. L'elemento tempo significa anche avere una prospettiva di medio, breve e lungo periodo. Non aggiungo altro, faccio una battuta prima di passare la parola a Angelo Ciribini, e cioè qualche anno fa c'era una bella pubblicità con George Clooney, ve la ricordate? No martini, no party. Io direi no corporation, no party. Ecco, lancio la discussione su questo e Angelo ti lascio la parola.
And dating back to 2011, I think that maybe the most valuable maybe outcome that has been achieved by Mark has been to persuade people in front of the notion and maybe the feeling of urgent pressure. And so, because the reluctant construction industry lost a large part of its own reputation, it's clear that we have to maybe come back to the Simon Report in 1944 until, of course, the Watson-Ball Report and so on. And it's clear that if we are looking at, for instance, the Egan report, we have to remember that Mr. Egan was coming from the manufacturing industry and so on. And so it's clear that as well as the Industry 4.0 is showing and demonstrating the maybe manufacturing paradigm in Germany before any other country is so overwhelming, overarching, and so on. But it's clear that David was mentioning the CIC BIM protocol, and it's clear that maybe what is before the expected amendments you will make, but it's clear that the original CIC BIM protocol was featured by being an addendum. And so it was clear that maybe some years ago we were maybe trying to amend and so change the original framework, the original mindsets, and so on. It's clear that maybe, in my opinion, it entails that the original message to be addressed by Mark was, don't be worried. BIM is not so transformational. BIM is not so disruptive. BIM maybe is allowing to increase the productivity rate without paying any special burden and special cons and so on. It's clear that in the UK, in my opinion, nowadays we are looking at two different consistent but concurrent trends and initiatives. The first one is, of course, Digital with Britain, and I have maybe to say that the UK BIM level 4, according to Mark, will be the social issue. And so we have, as well as Alexander was mentioning, remembering about the maybe human attitude, the desire to be cooperating and so on. But it's the second one is UK BIM Alliance, and Marcia has been involved within by NCAMP and RIDE. And it's clear that I think that maybe it's a huge effort to really involve the whole supply chains, maybe to widespread the original seeds, which were maybe affecting only the upper tiers, for instance, the main contractors, and maybe the subs. And so I think that we have to reason about how to involve the whole strategic supply chain. In Germany, there is a very interesting manufacturing-oriented program called Mittelstand Digital. It's clear that the SMEs are maybe the main focus to be investigated, maybe the main challenge. And so such a challenging action will maybe take a decade or at least 5 years. And so I think that we have to reason about maybe how to root the principles and the paradigms over the entire supply chain. And this is the first main question. But the second one is, what does really mean the principle of duty to warn? Because to maybe adopt or accept giant liabilities could maybe cause some turbulences, some painful thoughts, and so on. And so I think that maybe the duty to warn could be more and more investigated.
I always prefer to stand up when I speak. There's lots of questions in what Angelo has said, including the last two. One of the things I think we have to do if this is going to attract clients in the construction industry is to make it easy. And we have to decide what is the way to make it easy. And I agree that Mark, you and the CIC 3 or 4 years ago were attempting to make it easier, and that was a good move. Unfortunately, one of the big contract publishers that Angelo referred to there, the Joint Contracts Tribunal, never accepted that the CIC protocol took precedence. So therefore the majority of UK construction projects were, for the last 3.5 years, in a conflicted position of a recommended make it easier protocol and a recommended contract form that said we don't accept that this protocol is overriding. So it didn't quite have that effect. The make it easy, I think our biggest responsibility is vocabulary, and whatever you do in Italy, please don't do what we've done in the UK, which is create an entire new language of BIM. For some reason that will always escape me, we do not use any term of art in relation to BIM that we use in relation to the rest of construction. And that confuses me after 2 years of research, and so I imagine it confuses every single person in the industry. There becomes a sort of IT speak that people use to show off, really, to show how advanced they are. That is not the way to change the construction industry. We have to have a vocabulary that is consistent with whatever your clients and your industry use. That was our biggest mistake, in my view. We talk about manufacturing. We've, ever since Egan and probably before, people have drawn parallels between construction and manufacturing, which I think BIM is in danger of overstating. There are elements of the supply chain that can be hugely helped in very simple ways by BIM through automated payment systems under something equivalent to blockchain. But if you remove the human being from the construction, the design and construction process, you do so at great risk, and manufacturing only goes so far towards construction. If we're talking about the many reports in the UK, I still adhere to Sir Michael Latham, who was a remarkable man who foresaw BIM, as he did pretty much every other industry trend, and anybody who is interested in if you are, UK set of government-driven recommendations. What I love about his report is that it was pre-digital, it was pretty much pre-decent computers, so it looks very homemade, but it is full of wisdom. So to answer the two questions, one of the problems with the supply chain is clients who think that all supply chain members are the same, and therefore insist that all of them are involved in the same way. I think it is quite evident that some subcontractors and manufacturers work very comfortably through the medium of BIM, and for others it's completely irrelevant and will always be irrelevant other than getting paid. So selective engagement of the supply chain, which I think is what Angela was saying, is an important thing to do. Blanket formulas as to how a contractor should work are no better under BIM than anything else. We look at need and contribution and make an intelligent selection. Duty to warn, just to finish, really interesting point. In the common law, under the English legal system, there is a duty to warn, and it's a really quite scary duty to warn. If you look at it, it started just around health and safety, but it translates into people being responsible for taking over each other's design, and contractors not only having a duty to warn, but a duty to make sure that designs are buildable. So if you don't clarify it contractually under English law, you find yourself with some very surprising responsibilities. So I think that contractualising a duty to warn, and the point that we want to get to is, of course, you can only give a warning within the scope of your expertise. An architect cannot become a structural engineer because they give a warning about a structural engineering issue. They're seeking to be helpful. It is the structural engineer that answers the question and says authoritatively there's an issue or there isn't an issue. So it is a communication process, it is an engagement process. I think people need to meet if they can't resolve things by email, but getting the issue on the table and getting over the fear of warning is a really interesting point. All these years I've worked in collaborative projects, people don't want to give a warning because they don't want to be implicated in someone else's problem, nor do they want the embarrassment of pointing out someone else's fault. We've got to do better than that. If we can't get over that point, then BIM won't work and collaboration won't work.
Yeah, I can also give maybe some points to the questions. Maybe first question around Industry 4.0 and manufacturing industry, what are they doing in BIM? I mean, many things are the same, but of course Internet of Things and Industry 4.0 is still something different, and may also be integrated into a BIM system, but not in the first steps and the models we are talking about now. For example, in Internet of Things, the machine itself can communicate. So the machine itself will tell the previous machine, for example, I do not have any stock, so please deliver more stock. That's not at least not today, the way the model we have is BIM. So we are, if you want, a part only of Industry 4.0. However, for example, in the earth-moving equipment, there are first projects where, for example, you can load the BIM system into an excavation machine, and they know what to excavate. So if the driver of the machine wants to excavate more or deeper than the model is, the machine will say, you just don't do it. So that is maybe a beginning of if you want, Industry 4.0 in the BIM system, but that's not the model we're talking here, because we are starting with the implementation, starting with the operating model and starting cooperation. Yeah, warning, duties to warn, I also mentioned that we have many things around that in Germany about this obligation that is very often in the contracts, and that also the reason why very often these questions arise when it comes to cooperation. How far does it go? And of course, many project owners, they will not restrict this duty because it's very comfortable for them. And very often the court says, in the case that you are the expert company, you need to be able to say if it's right or wrong, especially on the interface between design and construction company. So very often the construction company has a duty to evaluate the design or give a warning if it's not possible. So that is something I think, I don't know what the answer is at the end of the day. And what will be the effect in a BIM system, because that is also an issue that we had before BIM. And the question is, will that, for example, this duty, will that increase in risk, or will it increase the risk, for example, of a construction company, or will it maybe more reduced because the information is better? And when I worked in a general contractor company 20 years ago, for example, we always were a little bit happy if we found some mistakes in the design, because in the back of our heads it was already claim number one. Today the thing completely changed, because these claims are not, we cannot negotiate them successfully, because we should have warned our client.
Allora, io direi a questo punto diamo la parola al pubblico, abbiamo una mezz'ora di discussione buona, quindi se ci sono domande da parte del pubblico siete benvenuti. Nessuno rompe il ghiaccio. Allora io direi di venite qui, perché altrimenti non chiedo la cortesia di spostarvi, magari facciamo passare.
I have a simple question to Mr. Mosley. In the first example, the first case history you showed, how did the client, the final client, choose land lease as the contractor to start the process?
Great question. The first example was Interserve, the second one was Lend-Lease, but the same point applies. The client already had in place a framework alliance that is remarkably similar to FAC1. So it had a number of contractors who had already proven their BIM capability as well as their other capability, who had already priced model projects when they were selected, and who were there ready for a mini competition. So they were selected through a mini competition. Under the mini competition, a group of, should we say, 5 or 6 were issued through the medium of BIM with the client brief and with the client designs as far as they had been taken, and with an invitation to submit priced proposals for some aspects of the project. The ministry had built prisons before, it had built young offenders institutions before, and it had a BIM library that it was building up, so it used the information it already had. But then it was also getting them to submit, and this is very, very important, a statement of their profit and their overheads, separate from cost. So, and a set of proposals, qualitative proposals, as to how they could deliver the entire project in the best possible way. So the matrix of evaluation wasn't, we'll give it to the person who quotes the lowest profit or the lowest overheads. We say, thank you, profit and overhead, we'll put that over here because we're going to use it later. But you will have a mixture of pricing and quality in this mini competition that will be the basis of choice. You will appreciate my point clearly from the expression on your face that in early contractor involvement, under any approach, you have to agree the profit and the overheads of the general contractor, and you have to protect them, because then you can look for ways of saving cost working with the contractor without the contractor thinking, I'm going to lose some profit every time I look for a new idea. But that's a more detailed aspect. Is that clear enough? Thank you.
Good afternoon. My job is in a technical company that makes curtain walls. We work very often in the UK market, and we are very worried about intellectual properties. So we would like to understand how we can deal with this type of problem. For example, the level of details that is required normally in a contract is 350 or 400. We normally get to that level of details too late for the contractor to do clash detection. So it's useless at that point to give them so many information that they could use to learn our system. So how would you envisage us to deal with this type of problem? Curtain walls.
So curtain walling, a very important work package like mechanical and electrical. These are elements that you take a huge risk if you don't work with the specialist subcontractor manufacturer because you cannot understand their systems in the way that they do. So it comes back in my world to the correct procurement model. If you're being selected too late to make a contribution to clash detection, that suggests you're being selected too late to make a contribution to design at all in any meaningful sense, because if the clashes are detected during the construction period, that is a claim.
No, I understand. Normally, when you supply a model for clash detection,
yes,
but that has to be at the beginning of the project. It has to be done in a very, very early stage, otherwise it's becoming useless.
yeah. So my
The moment that we get to give the contractor the model with the level of definition of details that is required as a package is too late. So why do I have to give so many information that I need?
Okay. I don't know the answer to why you're being asked to give information that nobody is using, but I can suggest that under a proper two-stage procurement model, right at the top of the list of works packages that need to be agreed and supply chain members who need to be brought on board will be curtain walling, because it has been on projects I've worked on. So in those circumstances, for example, there is an early selection of the general contractor. Let us say they have not selected their curtain walling subcontractor. Let us say there is a choice of 3. And you are invited to put forward proposals to one contractor, and you're in competition with 2 other companies. Just as an example, in those circumstances, you know that you have a 1 in 3 chance of selection, and there is some work that you might do at risk. You might say, I can prove my capability and my efficiency while I'm still in competition, and I'm going to sit around the table being interviewed not only by the contractor, but also by the structural engineer, also by the client. I'm close to this, I can win this through showing my excellence rather than just doing as I'm told. In those circumstances, clearly, you should be selected in time for all of the details you submit to be used in clash detection. That model of procurement, that approach to procurement, seems to me the only way. Otherwise, it sounds as though the contractor is doing what they're told to do, seeking information from you, but is wasting your time because it's happening too late for you to make a contribution. You're not alone in this, obviously. It's happening all the time. And what people are doing is taking the inefficiency, the pre-BIM inefficiency, into a BIM world and making you do even more that exposes the fact they should have selected you earlier.
Maybe a short comment on that, because that is a question as well What is an overall issue is that we need to define the interfaces right. So if curtain walling has a high risk later on site, because many clashes appear on site, we need to do the design earlier. So that is exactly the point from the very beginning. In BIM projects, design has to be done earlier, that we are able to avoid all these clashes on site, because that is one portion of the cost saving we have. And doing that, it's, why is it not done today? It's because of also cost issues, because the project owner now needs to invest money more earlier in the project. He needs to fund the design work in earlier phases of the project, but that needs to be done because that is one point why, where efficiency gains, efficiency values and values of the BIM model can be reached, and I think that's a core point, not only in the specific design work, but also in the entire design work that we much more earlier. And in Germany, we have, this is a very big discussion, because you might know we have a system when the project owner has to pay the engineers and the designer by phase. So the early phases does not provide enough budget to do the design and the detail level we need. So that's a discussion that starts, how can we redistribute, of course we cannot just add more to the overall budget, but redistribute the budget into more earlier phases that we come to a higher level of detail more earlier, then we can do it, and then we save money.
I would like to ask you a couple of questions. The first one is about this intellectual property of the model. So you both said it has to be shared, but is this an obstacle in order to selling the model? I'm explaining myself better. I'm a BIM manager for an architectural firm, so we start the process usually. And our goal, as I think should be for other architectural firms, is to sell the model to the contractor. The model is a business value in BIM. But I am curious to know your opinion about this thing that we keep sharing the intellectual responsibility. So I am able to sell to the contractor something that is already, a portion of this model is from the contractor. And in second instance, I have another question. How do you deal with legal responsibilities about data when a consultant provides data to another consultant and these data are wrong, or there are some mistakes that invalidate the work of the other consultant? Why? Because I think this is one of the biggest problems here in Italy. We don't trust the engineer, doesn't trust the architect, and both. So it doesn't want to rely its analysis on data that someone else provides. And it's a problem, like, in order to get to this level.
Maybe to your first question, copyright, I think that is a point, and in many projects, it's the project owner says it's, or the architect, that's my model, and I sell this model. The question is, how can the other companies save their own intellectual property in this model? If you want them to cooperation, if you want to bring their specific knowledge into the model, that's, from my point of view, a little bit the open question. How can you achieve that? Because the overall ownership, I think, is different in different countries. There's also the model, I think very often in the US, that they say the model, everybody owns the model at the end of the day. But in Germany, it's very often they say, no, it's a project owner, so he gets the ownership also. Okay. The second point, I think, is the same we have. It's always the claim, oh, the previous design was wrong and now I have big costs. And that's also, I think, a big point in BIM, because you see immediately, or not immediately, but easier, is the design correct or not. We see it very often. You get 4 GB of data around midnight, so he has done it as PDFs, and 2 weeks later you read it for the first time. But in the 3D model, I believe it's easier to identify if it's complete, if it's complete, so if it's correct. However, the issue still remains. So and that's the issue also I see and we discuss. So what is your duty to test it? So how thoroughly you need to clarify is it right or wrong? First. And the second point, if you identify mistakes, do you have to notify the others about the mistake? Is it your duty, yes or no? And then it's an issue of the contract to find the right level of interface. I think the big point is that with BIM, I'm pretty sure you can identify more clearly, are there at least large mistakes or
Thank you. Yes, firstly, I don't think that we should look at joint responsibility for models. I think this is confusing and unnecessary. I think there needs to be an audit trail back to each contributor so that their contribution is supported by their insurance. That's my view. I don't think that collaborative working takes us into joint responsibility unless we have a great big joint policy of insurance, and I don't see why we should ask the client to pay for that. So I think that the problem is a commercial one in terms of what have I sold to you and am I being paid properly for it. Now I've painted the Ministry of Justice as an excellent client. They're also quite a greedy client. They do like to take a transfer of intellectual property and they do like to put designs into their BIM library, and they say, you are my framework consultants, you're going to get a lot more work, but what's yours is mine. And so, those consultants don't have to agree that, but clearly it seems to make clients a bit greedy, BIM, and you as I said earlier, consultants have to hold a line. I think they have to hold a different line to the one that I've seen emerging. I think because tomorrow is BIM, but your point in commercial terms is quite right. There is there's something that is of concern there in terms of what is bought and what is sold. The second point is related. I think there are two aspects to it. One is clarifying your reliance on what has gone before, and that is an interface issue. So in other words, if I am a structural engineer picking up the designs of an architect, in my responsibilities matrix, I have to say, I'm relying on those designs. I'm not validating those designs unless you pay me to. That is the same, we always take it back to the pre-digital world. That was the same before BIM. BIM enables it, but it doesn't change the position. The duty to warn, as I've said, if it needs to be crafted in a way that doesn't implicate people in each other's specialisation, it is a notification of a concern that then leads to, in my world, a group of people meeting to try to resolve the issue. And if it is a structural engineering issue raised, or an architectural issue raised by a structural engineer, it is not realistic to build a building out of custard. We know previously it's all fallen down. It should be built out of steel and concrete. It is then a matter of going back to the party who's responsible for this crazy idea to rework it. So I think it is an issue of process. I think what you are highlighting quite correctly is that people are not mapping out a complete process, and as a consequence, consultants are very worried about the interface. I think you can legitimately go back to your clients and very helpfully fill in the gaps around interfaces before you start.
Any other question?
I have two questions. One is from the trade contractor or subcontractor side. One is during the project, one is during the warranty period. So during the project, you have spoken about intellectual property and about the license that should be granted to the owner about the design, for example. If at a certain stage of the project, me as the trade contractor, I'm not paid, and this is unlawful, from an unlawful reason of from the owner side. I think you said that I can suspend or revoke the license. What does it imply in reality? That according to the UK system or the German system, that can I claim also the seizure of the project because it's an infringement of my intellectual property rights or not? And this is the first question. But it is quite important because it gives me a good leverage to be paid sometimes. And during the warranty period, if I don't get it wrongly, you said that there's a during the project there is a continuous exchange of data. And this means that there's no warranty of the completeness of data. But at a certain point I have to hand over an as-built drawing. And in the past it was a paper signed off, and now it's an electronic data. Who can tell who's the final version of it? Do you sign electronically, and who is obliged to store it? What happens when a warranty issue comes after 5 years, and the first thing that the surveyor do is assessing whether the construction was built according to the as-built or there is non-conformity? Thank you.
I will start on that to give Alexandra an opportunity to prepare a fuller answer. Let me correct what I said, or clarify what I said. The CIC protocol suggested a right to suspend a license. I don't recommend that, I'm sorry. Much as I am a supporter of the subcontractor, I can't suggest that a payment dispute between a main contractor and a subcontractor should bring the whole project to a halt. However, the UK position under statute is that you're entitled to suspend work for non-payment. There is in the UK, there is a statutory right to suspend work for non-payment, as well as a statutory right to interest on late payment, as well as a government mandate, almost, for a project bank account that puts money into a separate place so that main contractors can't delay paying you. So in a UK context, there are 3 other things protecting you for non-payment: suspending the license, seizing back your property, I would suggest is an unnecessary 4th. You may disagree, but you see where I'm coming from. With the as-built, this is becoming more of a technical issue, which is why I will duck it and pass it to Alexandra almost at any moment. I think you are so right. We have, at the moment, a strange mixture of protections. So in the UK, there is a period of defects liability of the general contractor. There are specialist warranties from trade contractors that go on longer. There is a role taken on by a repair and maintenance or facilities management organisation. And then there are soft landings connecting the two to some degree. And BIM is exposing how we have not thought those through properly and integrated them. So as you say, the clarity of where is that model, in the same way as where are my as-builts, where is the operational manual that I contributed to, should be an easy question to answer. But it depends on someone in the client or in the operations contractor, the FM contractor, keeping it up to date, maintaining it. It depends on whether the software has become obsolete. It depends on many practical factors that, as you say, as the party who's given the warranty, you want only to pay out on that warranty if you know your product has failed, not because someone has neglected to use the completed version. I think signing off something as complete should be logically easy. It should be. You know, how it takes place we can debate, but that's a logical position. How it is maintained, what it needs, what the client's responsibility is as a condition of your warranty is a really interesting point that we're still exploring. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to the first question. I think you answered that. I also would not recommend to suspend the licensees. To the second point, typically that's not so much a problem. It's right, you exchange a lot of information, but there's a point, a milestone where you, for example, need to deliver your final design. And there's of course a milestone where there's the final acceptance test or whatever at the end of the project. There are different ways how it is organized. Typically in the projects I know, you have, for example, a manager, and he has a duty to run the system. And then you say there's a milestone, a specific date, where you need to deliver your final design. The design has a clear, or the file name, for example, has a clear name for a final design, for draft D or whatever. And then you need to deliver your final design, upload it to the system until, I don't know, 6 in the evening, a specific date, and that then is at least the proof that you have delivered that. Sometimes you can, on top of that, also with an electronic signature or meet or whatever. Typically, that's enough. For the final acceptance and starting of a guarantee period, there are also systems, specific processes in the system where you can do your typical classical protocol of the final acceptance test, and you sign it and it's also in the system, and very clear that that works. I think that's an advantage of the BIM system because the transparency is extremely high. You have for everybody very clearly documented when it was, which delivery, what was delivered, and so on. And very exciting.
Bene, io direi a questo punto chiudiamo questa giornata. I want to especially thank our guests. Thank you very much for being with us and for answering all the questions. Chiuderei semplicemente dicendo che anche la giornata di oggi rappresenta una prova di cooperazione. Quindi anche noi usciamo dalla nostra comfort zone e cerchiamo di fare qualcosa che coinvolga in maniera un po' più stabile i nostri 3 atenei di appartenenza, quindi l'Università degli Studi di Milano, il Politecnico di Milano e l'Università degli Studi di Brescia, anche perché la risposta vostra di oggi ci dimostra che il tema è interessante, che è utile approfondire le tematiche che sono state sollevate oggi, e quindi non possiamo fare altro che promettervi dei nuovi appuntamenti e ringraziarvi tutti per la pazienza e per l'attenzione con cui ci avete seguito oggi. Grazie a tutti.